whatever facet of our identity that we are acknowledging. The idea is to be able to find ourselves reflected in that literature.
On this week's episode, I had the pleasure of speaking with Valcine Brown. Valcine is a veteran teacher of high school English language arts serving in public education. Dr. Brown holds a BA in English Literature, an MFA in Humanities, Creative Writing, an MFA in English Literature, and a PhD in Education, Curriculum, and Instruction. Understanding the connection between literacy and economic prosperity, her passion is increasing literacy in adolescents, an often neglected topic. Dr. Brown was born and raised in Southern California, where she still resides. Welcome to the show, Valcine.
Hello there, Miss Latasha Johnson. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you for coming on to the show. I really appreciate it. And you have such an impressive background. I can't wait to get into it. Why don't you tell the folks about yourself?
Well, I'm a veteran educator. This is my 12th year teaching. I teach English language arts at a public school, high school, and I've taught everything within high school, ninth grade through 12th grade, CP, AP, Lit, and Lang, and I also teach Avid.
Oh my goodness. That is, like I said, y'all, impressive background, impressive background. So you have an extensive education background. So I'm looking at my notes here because it's a long list. All right. So you're holding a BA in English Literature, an MFA in Humanities and Creative Writing, and a PhD in Education. So what
Yes.
inspired you to pursue a career in education, and how have your academic experiences shaped your teaching philosophy?
Well, I came to teaching late in life. I went to college straight out of high school, but didn't really know what I wanted to do. I thought I wanted to be a child psychologist, left the first class in tears. And then I thought I wanted to be a journalist. And then they're like, you got to go out there and get the story. And I'm a go-getter, but I'm not aggressive in that way. So that wouldn't fit my personality. And it wasn't until decade later, I was a stay-at-home mom running a home daycare. I have three children. My two oldest were in elementary school. So I was at home with the baby and two other children that I was caring for. And I started replicating what I saw our librarian, Miss Helen. I used to take my children to story time at the library. I started replicating the way she would group books together thematically, and she always had a craft or something for them to do. So I started implementing that in my daycare and was teaching they were 2 years old at the time. I'm teaching them phonics, teaching them how to read. And I was like, oh, I'm good at this. But I knew I didn't want to teach little kids because I have such a passion for literature. I love to read and write and talk about reading and writing. So I knew I was going to be a great educator, but I knew I needed to teach just within my love, my passion, which is literature. So that drew me to teaching at the high school level. And my philosophy has actually, in a way, blossomed from my own experience. It's very different than my own experience. I was always a nerd. I love learning. My mother bought me a encyclopedia set, the Encyclopedia Britannica Junior set, and I would sit and just read, and I would come, Mom, look what I learned. So my experiences were always very positive in education. And so I loved reading. And coming into teaching students who may not be as passionate about learning, about reading as I am, kind of butted against my philosophy. But I also believe within the core of my heart that education is a key that unlocks doors. It doesn't have to always be formal education, but you definitely need that diploma to open the doors for whatever you want to do. You want to take up a trade, you want to be an entrepreneur, you have to have the ability to research, find knowledge. But then college is the route for some as well, depending on what career they want. So education unlocks doors. And that is one thing that I really try to hear from my students what they're passionate about, and also try to encourage them so that they can have the future that they want.
I love that. And I love the fact that you said that you became a teacher later in life. Do you think
Mhm.
that you had more of an advantage by becoming a teacher later in life? Because some people start right out the gate, but you had some life experiences that, that kind of led you down that path. Do you think that that helped?
I think it helped me. I think that in my older years, I'm much more patient than
Mm,
I was in my younger years. I don't know if I would have lasted in teaching had I started teaching in my 20s. So I might have been in trouble.
yeah.
I might have been, I will snap back on a person in a minute. But
Hey, I
now,
agree.
right?
That's why I asked.
But now I can pause, I can take a breath, I can channel my mother who had a way of putting you in your place. And it's not till later you're like, did she just say to me what I thought she said?
Nah.
You're right. So I think that later in life was best for me.
I love that. I love that. So, again, with the education here, your doctoral dissertation, minority students' attitudes toward reading among those exposed to mirror books and those who were not, a causal comparative study. That's a mouthful. That's a long
It
title.
is.
I got through it though. All right. Is focused on the impact of mirror books on minority students' attitudes toward reading. Could you
Yes.
explain what mirror books are and discuss the key findings of your research? I thought that was interesting. So I think
Thank
others will.
you so
Yeah.
much for asking. Surprisingly enough, many people, even in education, don't know what mirror books are. So I'm so glad you asked this.
Oh,
Mirror
okay.
books are books through which a person can see themselves reflected, either racially, culturally, um, whatever facet of our identity that we are acknowledging. The idea is to be able to find ourselves reflected in that literature. And the main components of what I discovered through the research, well, let me give a little information about the survey itself. So my instrument of measurement was the SARA. It stands for Survey of Adolescent Reading Attitude. Now the SARA gives a holistic score, but it also breaks it down into 4 different compartments. So it's academic print, academic recreational, digital print, and digital recreational. So in addition to the holistic score, you can see exactly where students have a more favorable or less favorable attitude towards reading. One of the things that we measured is that a student's attitude towards academic print improved while students' attitude toward digital recreational went down a little bit. Now, those shifts were not considered statistically significant, but there was a numerical shift. So I left the table with a little bit of knowledge, but also more questions. Some of the things that I postulated with my dissertation chair is what if the study had been a little bit longer? Because this was a 6-week study. I was trying to get the dissertation, get
Yeah.
done, get out of there. And so we don't know if the shifts that started might have measured statistically significant if the study had gone longer. And another thing is that I chose what I believed might have been mirror books for the demographics of students where I was doing my study. But
Mhm.
who's to say if they didn't feel like it was a spot on mirror representation? So
Mm,
had I had the time and even considered these are the students I'd like to do my study with. Let's find out what they see as mirror books, ideally things they haven't read yet. Get those books for them, then measure their attitude towards reading, let them read the books, then measure their attitude again. That also could have been a factor for the shift of possibly being statistically significant.
interesting. Would you ever, again, you're talking to a market research nerd, so I don't know if you knew, I don't know if you were aware of that, but yeah, that's my background is market research. So I'm curious if you did that study again, would you do that study again? Is actually my question. And if you did it again, what would you do differently? Is that the only thing you would do differently?
There's a lot of things I might. The significant thing I would like to do different is have a longer study. I don't think
Okay.
6 weeks is long enough to really impact, especially if you consider conversations that I've had with students about their lack of desire for reading, that attitude has been around longer than 6 weeks. So I think it would take more than 6 weeks to shift the tide.
Okay.
And I'm so glad that you and I are nerding out together on research.
Oh yeah, no, hey, I saw. Listen, I was very excited about this.
Thank you.
Yeah.
A couple of things that I am very interested in researching that still revolve around attitude towards reading. I'd like to see if there is a statistical correlation between Lexile level and attitude. We would assume that a person who has a more favorable attitude towards reading, they're probably doing it more often, so they probably would have a stronger Lexile level. But it's an assumption until we've actually measured it and found that that is a correlation. So that's one of the things I want to find out. I know that when I was doing the research for my dissertation, most of the peer-reviewed journal articles that I encountered studied Lexile level or intervention for Lexile level at the elementary school level. I didn't come across a single peer-reviewed journal article that talked about Lexile level for adolescents. So I think that we have enough that people are saying, oh, the eighth graders can't read, the ninth graders can't read. Yes, but we aren't studying any intervention strategies in order to improve their reading.
That was my next
So
question.
that's a problem. But I think that until we've done some research to really start to disaggregate the problem, we don't know where we need to start.
That was going to be my question because you have all this data, right? So, what are the next steps coming from a study such as this? It sounds like right now is to be continued. That's what it sounds like with this answer.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes. The next study I plan to do, and I'm actually going to be working with a colleague and a friend of mine. He teaches at the elementary school level. So we are both interested in seeing if there's a correlation between Lexile level and attitude towards reading. So we're going to partner together to do a research to see if we can start to track from elementary to high school what we're noticing. And then once we get that data, who knows what doors that might open to maybe shift us in a different direction. I think there's just so much that hasn't been researched.
Yeah. Yeah. Super, super interesting. So, as a veteran high school English language arts teacher in the public education system, what are some of the significant challenges that you've encountered, and how have you addressed them to promote engagement and success?
One of the biggest challenges that I've encountered is actually what sent me back to school to get my PhD in the first place. One of the conversations I had with a group of sophomores, and this would be about 7 or 8 years ago, and I was talking about a book. We were trying to decide what we're going to read next. And there was a student who always did his work. I didn't have a problem in that regard, but he was like, "Ah." I was like, what's going on? He's like, reading is just so boring. And you're so excited. I don't get it. And that was the first time a student had ever told me that reading was boring. I was like, okay, hold on now. So now we're going to have a whole class discussion. I think it's important to hear from students and we have to keep our ears open. We can't start to address something if we haven't had some dialogue.
Yeah.
And so we opened the discussion to the whole class. And those who said they didn't like reading, I asked them, I said, okay, well, have you always not enjoyed reading? They all said, no, we used to like reading. Okay, well, when did you like reading? In elementary. They thought it was fun in elementary when their teacher would take them to the school library. They'd pick a book and they'd come back. And at periodic times during the class, they would say, their teacher would say, okay, we're going to read now. But it wasn't until middle school that when they lost that autonomy, lost their freedom of choice, and they only were given the books from their ELA teacher said, this is what we're about to do a novel study on, that they found it boring. So one of the things I discovered is that choice is a very important part for students' attitude. And so in my classes, I like to give my students choice. And I'm very fortunate to work in a district where I have complete autonomy on what we read. My district says these are the standards you are supposed to focus on in this quarter, in that quarter, in this quarter. You can use whatever literature you want, but focus on these standards because that's what we're going to be assessing. So I'm able to say to my students, both my CP and AP, hey, we're doing our novel. We're going to start that in 2 weeks. Let's talk about what novel we're going to read. So we'll get I'll go to the library, get a couple of selections. We'll read the synopsis in the back and we vote. And there's been times where my AP Lit students have chosen 2 different books. So here we are. I said, well, this one I've at least already read. So I have curriculum for this. This is the only one I have to read now. Okay, come on, let's do it. And so we actually, within the class, one group was reading Real Women Have Curves, the play by Josefina Lopez. The other students were reading The Nickel Boys by Colson Whitehead. And so it was very interesting that in the class, we take 15 minutes, we're going to apply these standards to the book you read. And this group is sitting over there just listening. Now we're shifting. Now we're going to apply the standards to your book. What did you notice? And now this group is listening. So it can work if we give our students a little more choice. So I hear not as frequently as I did in the beginning of my career that they find it boring. I still have students who don't want to read, but I hear that very infrequently. So that's one of the things that I've discovered that is very important, giving students choice.
I love that. And I can already tell you would have been an awesome teacher. I would have loved to have been in your class. Oh my
Thank
goodness. I can tell
you.
already. Just
Thank
your
you.
passion for how you're talking about reading and how you give students choices. And just, I could just already tell like it would be awesome to be in your class. So,
Thank you.
yeah, yeah. So, in what ways now we're kind of segue into technology, right? So we've got, I feel like some of us rely on technology a little bit too much. I still like putting the book in my hand. I don't know, whatever. Uh, but in what ways has technology transformed your teaching methods, and how do you integrate digital tools to enhance literacy and learning in your classroom?
Oh, uh, I love the use of the internet in the classroom. And I think it's very important. Just like any tool, it can be a tool for good or a tool
Yeah.
for bad. It's just a matter of how you use it. The thing I like about technology is the ability for me to shift on a dime with my students. I happen to be doing a unit with my AP Lang students, and the book that we have is a little old. It's old, 2016. So some of the essays they felt were outdated. And they said, Dr. Brown, these essays, really? I was like, what's going on? These are just so old. It's not even important anymore. I was like, okay, hold on.
Did you
And
say
I
2016?
in 2016. Well,
Oh
these right.
my.
Well, for them, but with them, they're used to getting stuff quickly on a dime. So to read
Yeah.
something that's 9 years old, they're like, is that even still important? So I said,
Oh,
okay, well, we have to finish this unit, but how about this? You give me a topic that you are interested in learning about. I
mhm.
will go find some high quality essays on that topic, and that'll be our next unit. But we got to stick with this one
Yeah.
first. So it was a great compromise. And so I was able to deep dive onto the internet, find some nice quality essays and some various things, and I pulled them together, and we were able to start that unit in, I think, 2 weeks from the time that we were finishing the other unit.
Mhm.
And I also like the ability, I use AI. In order
Yeah.
for me to shift for my students that frequently I'm teaching 3 different topics right now. I have AP Lang, AP
Oh,
Lit, and I also have 11th grade CP. So I needed to help me write questions. I know how to write questions. In that regard, I'm not cheating, but I need some help. So I'm able to use AI and say, I need an AP Lang question using this standard for this text. And there we go.
yeah.
So it can be a very useful tool if we are mindful of it.
Yeah, I tell people all the time, garbage in, garbage out. I mean,
Yes.
it can definitely be helpful, and I just thought about, I don't know, my soul is still back to that 2016 comment. It reminded me of something that I saw online, and it was a professor that said, Hey guys, this email hurt. This email really made me sad. And a student said, "Doctor or whatever." I can't remember the person's name. I saw. Are we allowed to use a paper? I saw a note from the late 1900s, from 1994. Can we cite this in our paper? I said, you know what? If I would have received that email,
Oh,
I said, if I would have
yeah.
received that email, that would have hurt my soul.
Yeah.
1994 is the late 1900s now.
Right. 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 And I don't I try to think back to when I was young, because I still feel young. I'm very active, but when I was young, my idea of old and antiquated literature, I think the use of the internet has just changed how we
Yeah,
see the age of things. I
yeah.
remember doing my first research, actually having to go to the library, go through the Rolodex, and you get the Dewey Decimal. You're like, oh, I found a great book. You go
Yes.
and it's not on the shelf. Oh, now
And
I'm
you're like,
back to square one, where now for my PhD program, I'm doing all my research using our Jerry Falwell library. I'm like, okay, got this book. Oh, you don't have it? Send it to me.
yeah,
Yeah.
it really is amazing, but I just had to think about that comment. I'm like, it made
Yes.
me think of that one comment I saw. I was like, 1900s. I said,
Yeah.
1994. Come on now.
I saw a TikTok recently where I think they were talking to basketball, in NBA basketball players when they were coming into practice or leaving practice. Oh, at what's old? Old 25. So, and I was like, oh, oh.
Oh no. I was like, I feel attacked.
I'm feeling some kind of way over
Yeah,
here. Mm.
exactly,
But
exactly.
I will say that one of the NBA players said, age old is a state of mind. I said, now you are my kind of guy.
Exactly, exactly. That's exactly how I feel. That's it. That's it. Don't come at me with some 1994 as being the late 1900s.
Right?
Do not do that. Oh my. And now a word from our sponsor. Are you a woman in the corporate world but feel like you're called to do something more? Starring You helps women, especially those in the corporate world, take their expertise and transform it into content that's not only impactful, but rooted in faith. Whether it's launching your own podcast, building your brand, or using your voice to reach others, we're here to guide you through the journey. So if you're ready to step out the corporate box and into your calling as a content creator, let's connect. Your voice matters. Your story matters. And we're here to help you share it. Back to the show. Yes. So, beyond the classroom, you serve as a mentor and coach, which is awesome. I
Mm.
love that so much. So, how do these roles influence your perspective on education, and what advice do you offer to new educators entering the field? I know a lot of
Yes.
people are going to be wanting this answer because there's a lot going
Ooh.
on.
I have to say the thing I love most about being a mentor is that it gives me renewed hope. I'm seeing educators come into the field with that enthusiasm that I had and I still have. And it gives me the opportunity to feel like I can give back and hopefully give them a solid foundation on which to establish a long, happy career, not just a long career, but a long, happy career. My advice to a new educator would be a few things. One, not everything needs to be graded. Don't stress yourself out.
Mm,
Two, be clear about drawing a distinction between your work life and your personal life in terms of time. When you don't take work home, leave it at work. And the other is self care. Take care of yourself. I think there's a reason why, well, not I think, but the analogy that I use is when you're on a plane, they tell you if the air mask should drop down, put your own air mask on first. If you can't put on your mask, I can't put on my if you can't put on your mask, I'm the only one who knows how to put on a mask.
yeah.
I'm gonna put a mask on you. You can't help me. I have to put mine on first, then I can help you and we can both make it.
Exactly.
Um, Early in my career, I would take work home, but it
Mm.
only in that first year. And it didn't even make it into the second semester. The cue for me is that I took it home and I didn't even take it out to grade these essays. I took that briefcase right back to work the same way I brought it in. And I said to myself, I didn't grade them because I was tired. And it's okay to say to myself, I'm tired. I need
Yeah.
to rest. I drew the line right then and there. I'm not taking anything home. I try to be very intentional about sticking to my contract hours. When it's over, I'm out of here. Now, if I do have some extra things I need to do, I may allow myself to stay one day a week. And even then, that is rare. So, in order to plan for keeping very strong contractual work hours, I don't grade everything. My students will say, is this going in the grade book? Probably not, but you still need to practice because you need to get good at it. So, for the one that I'm going to put in the grade book,
I love that.
oh, okay. And so I said, what's up to you? And sometimes I'll give my AP students, I'll give them 3 essays. And so we'll do 1 a week. And at the end, I'll say, give me the one that you feel you did the best on. So you've practiced 3 times. I've graded 1 and I'm giving you feedback on it. So that's what I would
I
encourage.
love
Be intentional about your boundaries between work and home. Keep your contractual work hours. And in order to do the first 2, not everything needs to be graded. And please engage in self-care.
I love that so much, and I bet you that keeps the students on their toes too, right?
It
Because
does.
they don't know which one is going
Yes.
to be the best, so they don't slack
Yes.
off. That makes perfect sense to me.
And I
I
learned that from another educator. My department had brought in Catlin Tucker, a very good ELA teacher up in Northern California, had brought her in for professional development. And she told us that. I said, what? I don't have to grade everything? Oh, okay. That changed the world for me as an English language art teacher because it's writing. Very few multiple choice. It's writing over and over and over again.
I love that. I love that so much. So, in addition to teaching, you're also an author. So, how does your writing intersect with your educational work, and what messages do you aim to convey through your publications?
The main thing that I'm focusing on right now is I just published a book in February, and it is credit recovery through demonstration of mastery. So it is a credit recovery program that I came up with at my high school where I'm teaching. It's now in its 3rd year of running, and it came about as a fluke. I was teaching an AP Lit class, but there was an issue with a band class that they needed to put them in the same period. And these seniors had been in band all their high school career, so they
Mhm.
shifted over to the band class, and now I had 4 students. So they were going to collapse that class and move those AP students into a different AP class. So I ended up with a free period. And I said, well, what are we going to do? Are you going to take a little bit of students from other classes and put them in mine? They said, well, no, the class schedule looks really tight. So I was like, I have an idea. We had traditionally, as most high schools, for credit recovery, they allow students either you have to sit through the class face to face again, or you take it online credit recovery. We had discovered that some of the students were cheating on the online credit recovery class. So I thought, what if we could take the work that we've already done in terms of creating grade level alignment from 11th through 10th through 12th grade and pulled out those core tasks where a student could come and demonstrate that while you did not have proficiency at it when you were in 9th grade, through continued exposure to those standards through the 10th and then the 11th, if you've now mastered those standards, come back and demonstrate that you can do that and you can recover credit. My assistant principal and my principal were on board. They said, "Oh, if your department is on board, we're on board." So I went to the department. I pitched. I was like, "Look, I have this idea." They said, "Well, it sounds good. I think we're on board. Can we see what it looks like?" So I took a couple of weeks. I created the curriculum, did some kind of mock-ups, and I said, "This is what it will look like." They all loved it, and they voted unanimously, yes, this is a program we can get behind because it maintains the integrity of credit recovery. We want you to graduate. We want you to recover those credits, but we can't have you cheating. And it was successful. The first year we started it around October because it took some time from the collapse of the AP class and then putting the curriculum together. So we started in October. And by May, we'd had about 45, 47 students recover credits for classes that they hadn't passed. The second year, we had about 60 students recover credit. Now in its third year, we had 60 students recover credit just in the first semester. So it's
Wow.
now running like a well-oiled machine. The students like it gives them the second chance to be able to demonstrate mastery, go on and move to graduate with their peers. The teachers like it because it requires the integrity on the part of the student to really demonstrate mastery. Of course, the district liked it. We've improved our A through G numbers, but they're not falsely inflated. These students really have demonstrated the skills. And there's a couple of high schools in our district who are actually considering adopting it as a credit recovery program. Our social science department has adopted something that's similar to it. They built their own model based on this for credit recovery. So it has a lot of potential to change second chances for students.
I love that so much. So you just wrote this book. Is this going to um, be rolled out like more broad,
Yes,
or is it just
that's what
now
I'd
kind of in
like.
your central area?
I would really like that. That's why I'm really trying to
Sounds
get out
amazing.
here and spread the
Okay.
word. Most admin who hear about the program are very excited about it because the costs are very low. You're already utilizing experts that you are employed. They're the experts in their field. They pull together the resources based upon their curriculum that they have at their disposal, and you're not purchasing licenses. You're not taking up seat time because you are trying to educate those who are taking the class for the first time, as well as those who need to come back and take it. And with online credit recovery, you have to purchase licenses in order for each student to retake that class. That can be costly.
Yeah. I just think that's awesome. What an out of the box idea, but that it makes sense too. And I bet you
Yeah.
it's encouraging to the student because it's like,
Mhm.
okay, because I would think that would be very daunting to think that I have to do all of these what modules that you probably see
Mhm.
online,
Mhm.
each one, and
Mhm.
then just to have the option that you just discussed. I
Mhm.
think that's a win for
Yeah.
everybody. I truly hope
Yes.
that idea is adopted through
Yes.
all of these schools. They could really use that. That's
Thank
awesome.
you so much.
Congratulations
And thank
on
you.
that.
I'm spreading the word right here with you.
Yeah. Well, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to do that. I didn't know about that part. That is, like, awesome to me. I
Thank
think that's
you.
amazing. I think that's really,
Thank
really
you.
amazing. So, actually, do you have any more upcoming projects that our listeners can look forward to, seeing you do?
Um, well, I'm actually going to be presenting my research from my dissertation at
Ooh,
ERA, American Education Research Association. They have their annual conference coming up the end of April.
wow.
And my dissertation chair found out that they were accepting proposals. And she said, "I really think your research would be perfect." So she helped me. We worked together to truncate it into an essay, and I presented it, I submitted it, and they received over 11,000 entries. And I was one of, I think they chose about 120. Yes.
That is
Yes.
awesome.
Yeah. Thank
Congratulations.
you. Thank
Oh my
you.
goodness, that's awesome. You should be I would be, oh my goodness, I'd be on cloud 9. That is
Oh,
amazing.
I am. I'm so incredibly excited and looking forward to it. Yeah,
I love
and
that. That's
once I
awesome.
received that word, they then said that there's a second opportunity. The initial 120 of us were able to put together our research in like an presentation form that kind of stays there and people can come around at their leisure and look. But they were opening the floor for about 20 of us to do what they call an e-lightning TED Talk. So we get to do a presentation and talk about our research for about 3 to 4 minutes, and then we have a 1 to 2 minute Q&A. So I submitted for that too, and they picked me. So
You're
I
gonna
actually
own
get
that
to talk.
conference. You're gonna
It's
own that conference.
it,
You're gonna
it
own it.
thank you. I'm gonna own it, walk in there with authority.
Yes.
And the amazing thing is that I'm excited and nervous all at the same time. I've never spoken to that large of a crowd, but I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, you'll
Um,
be fine. You'll be
Thank
fine.
you.
Oh my goodness, that is awesome. Congratulations. I
Thank
love that.
you. Thank
Oh my
you.
goodness, I can't wait to everyone, all of this information is gonna be in the show notes, but I mean, it's gonna be very long, but I mean, that is just awesome. You
Thank
have so
you.
much to be, like, very, very proud of. You've accomplished so
Thank
much.
you.
So, we are in April, right? If you had although it feels like much longer than that, but I'm just gonna leave it at that. Um, if you had to choose one word to represent your goals for this year, what would it be and why?
Empower.
Ooh, oh,
Um, the things that I do are not just for me. I do them to empower others.
I love that.
And when I think about the legacy of Blacks in America, we have continued to raise the bar for those that are coming behind us. I
Yeah,
stand on my mother's shoulders. Together, we stand on my grandmother's shoulders.
yeah.
I am their dream come true. My grandmother was born in 1908. She didn't graduate from high school. My mother was born in 1938, and she went on to not only graduate from high school, she got her AA degree. Now, here I come along, I have a bachelor's, 2 masters, and a PhD. And I want to empower minorities, especially to know that they are the limit to their dreams. Their mind is their limit. So if they would expand their mind and think outside of the box, outside of just the realm of what they possibly could think is reality, sky is the limit.
I
So I
love
want to empower.
I love that, and you are definitely, definitely doing that. I mean,
Thank
I'm sure you
you.
know that, but oh my
Thank
goodness, you're
you.
definitely
Thank
doing that.
you.
I love that with the research and your ideas and your creativity. So I know some folks that are teachers, but it's just like, I don't know, you have such a light. Like, clearly, this was
Thank
something that
you.
you're very
Oh, it's my
passionate about. I can
calling.
see it.
It's my
I can see
calling.
it. Yeah, I can see it. I can see it for sure.
Yes.
So, last but not least, what steps would you recommend for educators interested in conducting research within their classrooms to begin? And then, how can they ensure their research positively impacts their students?
I would say that to look within their passion and look at what they notice. We are on the front lines. We are the best to be able to communicate what's going on in the classroom. So if
Mhm.
we would look into our immediate circle of influence to see what we are noticing are the problems and use those as the questions to do our research, we will be contributing to education as a whole. Because what we're noticing, it's not just our classroom. It's happening throughout the continental US, right? So I would say start there.
I love that. Well, Valcine, I could talk to you all day. We could just nerd
Oh,
out.
thank you
Just
so much.
this has been such a blessing. It has been very informative and educational, and I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. I know the
Thank
audience
you.
has as well. So, in the event that folks would like to connect with you, how can they go about doing so?
They can find me at drvalcinebrown.com. Yes,
Fantastic.
and I'm also on TikTok, but my TikTok is mostly gardening.
Okay. Hey, oh, for real? Okay, I'm gonna have to follow you then.
Oh, yes, I'm a homesteader. I've been gardening in the deserts of Southern California for about 8 years. I've had chickens for 5 years. Yes, I'm
Oh,
loving
I
it.
think I have to
This
have you
is
come back on and talk about homesteading.
Oh,
I think that's super
absolutely. I could talk about
interesting.
that all day. Absolutely.
Okay, y'all, so this is
Yes.
probably part 1 of Dr. Valcine Brown coming on to the show because I do wanna have someone on talking about homesteading, so
Oh,
yes, there you go.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh my goodness, and I just found that out, so part 2 will be coming soon, guys. Oh my goodness. Well, Valcine, I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. Thank you so much for coming on to the show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. You are a bubble of energy, and this has been such a beautiful time spending it with you.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you. And now, a word from our sponsor. Hey, ladies, I just wanted to share my new book, How to Live an Extraordinary Life, with or without Mr. Right. I'm dismantling harmful stereotypes and empowering women to see that singlehood isn't something that you have to survive, it's a place to thrive. Through biblical wisdom and real talk, this book is going to answer key questions such as, what does the Bible actually say about singleness? And how can I reject society's misguided views and embrace God's plan for my life? So if you've ever asked yourself these questions or wondered if something was missing in your life, this is the book for you. It's time to stop waiting and start living. Your life isn't on hold. It's happening right now. Grab your copy today in audio or paperback format at www.withorwithoutmrright.com. Back to the show.